We're coming to you from the Dubai Cloud and Data Center Convention 2024, and joining me now is a very special guest, Mr. Yashnath Issur, CEO, Nxtra by Airtel Africa. Welcome to W.Media, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start by talking about how you've seen the digital infrastructure industry grow and evolve in Africa.
I think Africa is at we call that a hockey stick moment, where I do see a hyper growth happening in that region. I have someone with extensive experience in data centers globally. I've seen how the world has evolved, how countries, continents have picked up in cloud adoption, data center adoption. And Africa has always been, for good or bad reason, I would say, left behind a bit. But today, there is that intent to grow in that continent. There is the macros of the world which makes it the right time to grow in Africa. And what I see happening in the next 3 to 5 years is really building of infrastructure, whether it's data centers, whether it's connectivity, and that whole ecosystem to really support that cloud adoption in the continent. And definitely, you will see this not only in one country, but in multiple countries across the African footprint.
I'm glad you brought up cloud adoption. What have you noticed in terms of trends in cloud adoption?
I think cloud adoption is something which it grows when you have the right ecosystem around in a country. What I mean by that is just saying there is a cloud sitting in the US or sitting in Europe and expecting people in different countries to adopt it is a challenge, because the investment is not there to grow that talent locally, to leverage the use of that cloud. What we as Nxtra by Airtel and broader context, the Airtel group, right? We are looking at not only building those data center infrastructure, but really democratizing cloud as a mission for Nxtra.
What does that
Africa.
entail, democratizing the cloud?
So it entails that you not only bring the cloud to Africa, localize the cloud infrastructure, but work together with the local population in educating and also developing capabilities to use that cloud. So that local people, depending on the local context of Africa, develop solutions on the cloud which will meet the needs of the African people.
Interesting. Let's talk about the broader connectivity infrastructure for a bit. What is your assessment of that in Africa?
So I think there was a bit of a, I won't say a myth, but I would say 10 years ago the situation of Africa was probably a little bit different, in the sense that there was not that level of fiber connectivity in the markets. I'm talking specifically for Airtel Africa. And my colleague actually runs the Telesonic business, and he has been instrumental in really driving a lot of that, I would say, fiber layout in Africa. And if I'm not mistaken, we're at more than 70,000 kilometers of fiber connectivity in Africa. And together with the competition, if you put it, as a joint, I think the amount of cables run now for fiber cabling, you look at last mile, there's a lot of initiative which has gone into our markets to make sure that connectivity is not as the challenge which people think it is. And yeah, definitely is going to grow even better. I think with the likes of satellite connectivity, fiber connectivity, on top of our network connectivity, this will, I mean, the challenge of Africa is different. I think we have solved it in a different way as well. It's a mix of different last mile connectivities, backbone connectivities, which is providing the solutions of tomorrow.
Connectivity is challenging, right?
Yeah, it's challenging in any part of the world. I mean, if you look at, I was reading yesterday, I think SpaceX is providing connectivity to remote parts of the US.
Yeah.
It's not, I think sometimes we kind of tend to zero in on Africa because the problem is probably a little bit bigger than somewhere else.
Yeah.
But there will always be places in the world which will be difficult to get access to. And it's a different mix of technology to satisfy that need and make sure we are able to serve the population.
Excellent. Now let's talk about AI. It's not just a buzzword anymore, it's become a reality of our lives. There's a whole boom and it's just exploding across the world. What have you observed in terms of the impact of AI on Africa's digital infrastructure industry?
I think there's a realization that we need to build that infrastructure to support AI, right? There is some countries, some governments who have probably been a bit more, I would say, aggressive than others, UAE being one of them. There was an announcement made by the Kenyan president as well, giving more kind of context on how we are partnering to enable the infrastructure to support AI in Africa. I think building the AI kind of ecosystem, I use that word a lot simply because it's you have to have the people who understands AI to be able to use AI for good in our markets. But it starts with that infrastructure layer, which we are putting in place. I think more and more governments will become aware that this is something which is required. And we are overcoming the challenges which Africa had. And traditionally, we always said power was an issue. Now, in Kenya, we are saying that there will be a gigawatt of thermal, sorry, it's not thermal, it's geothermal, my bad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, geothermal energy which will be provided. So Africa is meeting those challenges in a good way, I would think, and that this kind of capacity will help us grow the African market, and hopefully the use of AI will become more and more prevalent once you're starting to train AI to support the realities of Africa.
You just mentioned a gigawatt of renewable energy, and now I'm curious, how do you see Africa, the data center industry in Africa, achieving those goals? What kind of challenges would they face? And also, Airtel has taken many initiatives related to sustainability. So could you shed light on those as well?
Yeah, I think I can talk much more on the infrastructure side, the data center side, what we have done. We are building data center in Nairobi right now. We are putting a hyperscale site in operation where we are using 92% at least of renewable energy to fire that, to pretty much say power up that site. And not all countries where we are building has the same solution. We are building in Nigeria where we are expecting to use natural gas. And the reason why we expect to use natural gas is simply because this is the cleaner energy which we find in that market, and we believe that using natural gas is something which will help us reduce our carbon footprint. So we are building huge capacity with data centers. This is, you won't hear the kind of capacity in Africa today, but the one we are building is 44 megawatt in Nairobi, 38 megawatt in Lagos. So this is a testament of the confidence which our leadership has in Africa. And we believe strongly that we are fixing the chicken and egg issue, I would say. When I was in Amazon before, I was looking at Africa, I was thinking, oh, there's no infrastructure there. Then automatically, why would you go to a place where there's no infrastructure? So now we're saying, we're making that bold bet as Airtel. We will build that infrastructure there to the right quality, to the right sizing, so that potential future partners can look at Africa and say, yeah, we have the right level of data center capacity, data center quality, which will actually give you that option to be in Africa, to serve Africa.
Are you also looking at more traditional, not traditional, renewable energy sources like solar or geothermal? Because LNG still falls into the more traditional space, it's still carbon based.
I agree with you, but again, context is important, right?
Yeah.
If you look at Nigeria, it's difficult for you to find 40, 50 megawatt of fully renewable energy to power that market specifically. So the best alternative you have is actually natural gas. But now you look at the likes of Kenya, where we want to be at some point at 100%. And we believe it will happen. But we make conscious decisions when we choose our site, when we choose the technology, when we choose the way we go into building those data centers, that they are first using renewable energy or using clean energy, I should say. And more important also, the way we built it we make sure that it's as efficient as possible. So our PUE is going to be best in class. We are looking to build at scale, which will enable you to achieve much more competitive and aggressive efficiencies for operating with data centers.
Now let's talk about the skills gap. You were talking about working closely with the local population. Does this also involve training, skilling, upskilling programs for graduates from local technology institutes?
Yeah, I think I'll take my own example. So I come from the US. So I used to work for a hyperscaler before. And one of the decisions which was made by the Airtel leadership here is they want to bring talent back to Africa. I'm from Mauritius, actually. And there's a lot of more people we are attracting back to the continent, which it was not happening before. So we just had a recent hire which moved from Seattle back to Dubai to serve Africa. And that person is African as well. So we are pitching a lot on bringing back the talent of Africa back to Africa. So that's one of the things we're doing, because it also creates that role model status. And you see much more people seeing those leaders coming back, supporting the growth of Africa. Now we will, together as a team, we will build that education foundation. When we hire younger people, out from universities, with those training programs, bringing them in our data centers, they are going to be trained by African people who has worked in the global, best-in-class companies in the world, coming back and giving that level of education and training so that they can actually deliver for the continent.
Perfect. Could you now shed some light on your expansion plans across Africa? Where else are you building? Are there any emerging markets that have caught your attention?
I think right now, being very honest, the whole of Middle East and Africa are emerging markets, right? Before, the thinking process, I guess, was it like now where the cloud, AI kind of presence is being much more and more localized. For Airtel Africa, more specifically Nxtra, what we are looking at is to really strengthen our presence in our main markets where we see strong hyperscale potential, the likes of Kenya and Nigeria being those, right? This is for me, I've seen those markets, I've seen where inflection point we are at today, and I'm a strong believer that these markets will grow the same way as Brazil has grown. For those who knows context, Brazil, if you look 7-8 years ago, there was no data centers. Today, there's a gigawatt plus of construction happening in that country. Similar size as Nigeria, 200 plus million people. Nigeria is 200 plus million people as well. Kenya, you're looking at Uganda, Tanzania, you add them together, similar size of population. So this kind of scale gives you that, makes us believe that this is really the right place to kind of double down in kind of hyperscale data centers. Then you have, I won't say edge, but I would say more kind of regional data centers you're looking to build.
That's actually what I was coming to, because when it comes to the backbone of economies that are still in the process of developing, it's the micro, small and medium enterprises, and they have been taken to cloud in a big way in the MENA region. So I was wondering, what is the edge deployment plan like?
Yeah, I think in all our markets we'll have edge data centers. That's so it's a mix of what we already have, which we are going to improve, and new data centers we are going to build in all our 14 markets. And this is going to be pretty much that kind of, you say, edge presence, right? Which will enable local enterprises who wants to quickly move into more higher quality, I would say, data center infrastructure and potentially cloud with our edge presence. But there is a lot which has to happen for this to kind of click into place. I think when building the infrastructure is the first step. And we as Nxtra Africa, we are razor focused on making sure that we are building. We keep building the right infrastructure.
Perfect. You have been coming to our events. I was wondering what has been your experience like here at W.Media's Cloud and Data Center Convention?
First, I should thank you for inviting me. I was really happy to be here.
We played golf.
I know, right? I was really bad at it, but that's a different topic. But more than that, I would say, I think the team which we came in place here, the ecosystem, the people which was here, the suppliers, the partners. I think for me, the fact that we are more regional players, understand more what we are looking at as our challenges on day-to-day in Africa, or in the MENA region. For me, that was a pretty, I won't say different experience, but at least an enriching experience for me, because you're able to actually discuss more real matters on what you want to go and fix in where we are based, right? And the quality of the conversation has been much more grounded for being much more in the thick of the issues we are having and where we think we should be going. And for me, that's something which was pretty impressive.
Thank you so much. I believe you have a panel discussion right after this.
I do.
So good luck for that, and thank you so much
you
for giving me this interview.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.